Group Archives. I'm Gillian. I've got a few handouts which you might like to, which sort of help you go through the presentation. So I just thank you. Give you guys some more handout. I'm going to talk to you about some of the examination assessment opportunities our organisation as the University of Cambridge Local Exam Syndicate has offered to adult learners. And I'm going to do this through a look at some of the examples from the archives. I should probably begin by defining my interpretation of adults here. The qualifications I'm going to look at were available to candidates over 17, and although I'm aware that that doesn't really represent formal adulthood in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, 18 is obviously quite a lot older than just 13 in the 1870s or 15 in the 1950s, which was the school leaving age. I'm going to start with a brief look at the local lectures. These were aimed at adults who had limited time and opportunity for education. I'm then going to look at the higher exams, certificates of proficiency, the Royal Pupil Teacher exams, and Homerton College final exams. I only have time here to give you a taster of the types of documents we hold. Please don't worry if the images are difficult to read, because I'll read out the pertinent points, and if you've got handouts, then you can take them with you and study them later. Syndics were committees created by the university as part of its policy of extension, and they were established to manage particular aspects of university business. The Local Exam Syndicate, set up in 1858, offered examinations to school leavers needing recognition of a standard of education in order to enter professional work such as civil service. The Local Lectures Syndicate was set up in 1878, and it offered university-level lectures and courses to adults from all backgrounds, including women. When the Local Lectures Syndicate was set up, it was combined with the Local Exam Syndicate and to become the Local Examinations and Lectures Syndicate, as shown here by the extract here from Contemporary Stationery. They were called locals because candidates didn't need to travel to Cambridge in order to attend the lectures or sit the exams. The exams or the lectures came to centres local to where they lived. However, the organisation still needed a building from which to operate, and the syndicate buildings became our first building here in 1868. It still stands today. It's on Mill Lane, which is parallel to Silver Street. It has an extra third gable, but you can still recognise it. And here, all our activities took place, such as where there was a warehouse for the distribution of scripts, there was boardroom for the governing body, the syndics, where they met, and it remained the official headquarters of the syndicate until the 1960s. For the local lectures that I'm going to look at now, I've just taken a snapshot of activities from 1917 to illustrate the sort of activities the lecturers engaged in, and I'm able to do this because the minutes of the local lectures are written in the same volume as our local exam syndicate minutes. First of all, the lectures that were open to the public were advertised in the Cambridge University Reporter. I've only come across these two for 1917. Both lectures relate in some form to religion, and the minutes of the meetings reveal that the syndics had a deep preoccupation with theology. The lectures were clearly very popular, and in 1917 they attracted three-figure audiences in a series of lectures in Yorkshire. In debating the level of influence the syndicate should exert over its theological programme, the syndics concluded they could provide a university stamp of competency. But this they administered with rather a heavy hand. They dismissed a number of lecturers, including the Archdeacon of Ely, because they believed that he had a very partisan temperament. And the discussions, however, do indicate a certain sensitivity to regional differences and the power of religion during the First World War at a time of such unprecedented trauma. The minutes here do include direct references to war, as you would expect in 1917. There are plans for lectures on modern warfare and for army cadets. Excuse me. Here there is even reference to an urgent call for lectures in YMCA hosts in France, and a request to send out lecturers urgently. There's even reference to DHSC, one of the syndics, who should be authorised to make such arrangements as are practicable with the centres, with lectures and lecturers as to the release of Latin for lectures in France. Other, more overtly political issues are also discussed, such as this passage here, which encourages secondary school children to attend lectures to promote a continuation school system. If suitable pupils could be sent to appropriate extension courses, it says, it might promote our work locally and lead to the individual to adult interest in our work. So it's looking very far ahead now, and it's seeing how we can attract the children at an early age and encourage them to then become the adults who attend the lectures. In 1925, the local lectures and local exam syndicates separated, and it would be logical to think that this is when the exams for adults took off. However, in fact, it was the local exams that had begun offering exams to adults more than 50 years earlier. So now I'm going to look at the higher exams. The Cambridge higher exams were set up in 1869, so obviously a lot earlier, in response to demands for examinations from women who wished to teach. And the quotation there is taken from a memorial or petition which was sent to the university for the introduction of such exams. Although the highers later admitted men, they attracted more women, as they were the matriculation exams for applicants to the women's colleges of Newnham and Girton in Cambridge. Interestingly, this image here of the Newnham Tripos students in 1885 shows 21 women, 18 of whom had been matriculated through the Cambridge higher exams taken at local centres throughout Britain. For those who then entered Girton or Newnham colleges, their progress continued to be monitored by the exam syndicate, and they can be traced through the syndicate minutes. One condition of study was residency at college, which could prove difficult for young women who were required to put family care before their education. And the minutes include several appeals from women who were unable to complete a full term of residency. Jenny White was one such student who entered Newnham College on passing the Cambridge Highers in 1899, but failed to reside the full spring term in 1901 because she was called home to Glasgow to care for her dying father. Although the syndics approved Jenny's appeal for the term to count towards her tripos, this wasn't granted until February 1907, so it was a full 6 years after the absence had taken place. To enter for the exam, candidates had to be over 18, and the entry fee was 40 shillings, which was obviously quite steep and excluded many potential students. Nevertheless, the entries reached almost 1,000 in the mid-1880s, with over 20 centres ranging from Newcastle to Plymouth. While the number of centres continued to expand, and centres were even opened in Jersey and Jamaica, the entries then started to fall. The exams themselves were run by regional committees, and we hold some committee minutes for the London and North Eastern regions, which shed light on the challenges that they faced. So I'm now going to hone in a little bit on the regions. Okay. The local committees made all the practical arrangements for running the exams. These included the hire of the hall, acquisition of desks and stationery, refreshments, appointment of a female invigilator. There had to be a woman invigilator in all of the exam rooms, and costs to the syndicate. And you can see these details here in this account sheet for 1902. The syndicate in Cambridge set the exams and appointed a male presiding examiner, who was a sort of travelling inspector, examiner, examinations officer, all rolled into one. Declining entries and extra new centres meant that each centre had fewer candidates, so the expenses per candidate began to increase. And as early as 1902, potential closure of the Newcastle Centre was discussed in the North Eastern region due to rising administrative costs. A letter from Dr. Keynes there, who was the head of the exam syndicate, is there, expressing the difficulty of carrying on the examination for so small a number of candidates, and it was feared that the centre in Newcastle might have to be given up. But it goes on to mention in the next paragraph that the new regulations for the hires, which account for the registration of teachers, might attract more candidates. The London regional minutes indicate recurring problems in acquiring desks and accommodating the practical chemistry exams. Practical chemistry was an alternative to the laboratory exam, which could only be taken in Cambridge anyway. Miss Bryant, who was headmistress of the North London Collegiate School, was coerced into hosting the practical exams for the whole of the London region, but complained several times about the considerable expense and labour, and eventually refused to host it. Although the new Board of Education declared that the qualification was the best for the junior school mistress, the market collapsed when both Newnham and Girton colleges replaced it with their own matriculation exams in 1922. Some lamented the loss, and here we've got an extract from the London Committee reflecting on candidates in the valuable opportunity hitherto afforded to the examination will be especially missed by, and then it goes on, A, candidates living in retired parts of the country who are obliged to work alone or by correspondence, and B, those who are teaching by day and have only the evenings and holidays for their own study. I thought that was quite interesting because, of course, with the development of online learning now, a lot of people are finding themselves in that very predicament where they do have to work from home. Although the Highs were officially wound up in 1922, not all those exams disappeared. I'm going to now show you a letter that I'm going to read out, which gives a hint to the new type of candidate who was to become more familiar with us in the 20th century. Revered Sir, says, I've written it out, it's easier to read than it is on the screen. I know my examinations are bad, but if the consideration is that I am a foreigner, an Italian, and that I extremely want a certificate as a title which may be useful to me, and get me some place for English teaching in Italy, can modify the judgment of the examiners, I entreat you to lay him before the Commission. If I could have this certificate, all my troubles should be at an end. The value it has abroad would soon enable me to teach English, at least in private families, and later on in schools. I feel sure I shall not use it unworthily. I thank you most respectfully and heartily, and pray excuse me, yours, Lucretia Bandoni. And that was a London address at the end. It's an amusing plea for the acquisition of a certificate, but it carries with it an interesting message about the value of the qualification for teaching abroad. When I first saw it, I thought it was a candidate who was wanting to buy or acquire a proficiency certificate. But of course it's dated in 1902, so it's 11 years before the introduction of proficiency examinations, and which was specifically aimed at teachers and introduced as part of the Highs in 1913. So it shows that link. It shows that there was a demand for those type of exams over a decade before the proficiency exams were introduced. Although well known today, the certificate of proficiency in English was just one of the proficiency exams which was introduced in 1913 as part of the higher exams. They included, as well as English, there was religious knowledge, French, German, Spanish and Italian. The exam itself was a series of punishing exams spread over 12 hours, as shown in this timetable. And none of the first three candidates for the English certificate actually passed. However, it did cling on, and revisions in the 1930s included the lowering of the entry fee and removing the dreaded phonetics paper, which was particularly grueling, I think, for the non-native English speaker. And it helped to make the certificate more attainable, and it grew. Syndicate minutes show that the Second World War presented new opportunities to target specific candidate groups and to set non-teaching examinations. In June 1944, the syndics had authority from the War Office to set English exams for Italian prisoners of war, with a possibility of creating German prisoner of war exams in the future. This doesn't seem to have happened, but here we've got an example of a preliminary test for Allied service personnel with a very specific candidate in mind. Particularly the question 2 here. Here are certain statements. Write down the questions to which they are the answers. And question 2b. No, you will not be able to leave your dog with me. So it's presumably a candidate they were used to Allied candidates who are coming along with their dogs. After the war, the Certificate of Proficiency in English was one of 3 Cambridge exams available to adults, which by the end of the century had mushroomed to over 20. Meanwhile, the Certificate of Proficiency in Religious Knowledge was the forerunner for the Cambridge Diploma in Religious Studies. And in 1948, a new proficiency exam was introduced. Here we've got the Certificate of Proficiency in Laboratory Technique, which was offered to 4th-year students at Cambridge Technical College. Students' subjects included workshop practice, biological, chemical, medical and photographic technique. And according to our annual reports, the first full certificates were issued in 1950. I'm now going to move on to rural pupil teachers. So in 1927, the Education Board commissioned a report on the provision of courses for training especially suitable for teachers interested in the country life and occupation, it says across the top. It was an attempt to harness the value of the country-bred teacher, and it invited the Cambridge syndics and Oxford delegates to cooperate in an exam specifically for rural pupil teachers and other persons serving in country schools, which was duly set up the following year. Candidates for this exam had to be over 17, and existing rural teachers or teaching assistants. Applicants had to be made by the candidate's own education authority, and here we can see the subjects taken and the breadth of characters who submitted candidates on the right. So all candidates had to take English and elementary maths. Male candidates had to take an extra maths paper for some reason. They all had to take natural science too, and they had to choose 2 subjects from history, geography, a foreign language, art or music. And there are also subjects that might meet vocational requirements of rural students, such as gardening, handicraft, housecraft and needlework. Candidates had to pass in 7 subjects, and the fee was £2, which was the same as for the highest 40 years previously. The syndicate minutes show that the examinations were controversial from the outset. The joint committee of the 4 secondary associations deplored the institution for the new exam and argued instead for the modification of the school certificate, perhaps because of potential career restrictions to candidates. Syndicates predicted low entry figures as well as complications with local education authorities and the Oxford Board. And while the exam never did attract high entries, it was ironically the fallout with the Board of Education which ended the venture. Cambridge and Oxford tried several times to update the format, but these were rejected by the board, and after the exams were discontinued, and after 8 years of very little change, the exams were discontinued. We don't hold very many of the pupil teacher question papers, but here are some examples. There's the natural science paper where the mercury question is repeated several times, and a needlework paper. Draft the pattern out of a pair of knickers for yourself, it says, but do not cut it. In February 1928, a year after taking on the rural pupil teacher exams, Cambridge syndics agreed to set the final teacher training exams at Homerton College. Homerton College had moved to Cambridge as a women-only teacher training college in the late 19th century, and the local exam syndicate set up a new committee to administer the exams. The committee had a high level of Cambridge University representatives, and the Vice-Chancellor was chairman, but it didn't really translate as student access to the university. Rather optimistically, in 1930, the regulations suggested and invited Homerton candidates, Homerton students, to enlarge their outlook by taking advantage of opportunities offered by the university to attend history lectures. But committee member Mrs. Salter pointed out that students were refused access to the council ruling and asked how they could take advantage of these opportunities when these opportunities did not exist. And the regulations had subsequently changed. The 1929 exams covered principles of teaching, English, hygiene, history, geography, mathematics, general biology, French, theory of music, drawing and gardening, and the question papers show what was expected of trainee teachers. The compulsory principles of education was both general and political, and here in 1943 you've got some interesting questions inviting candidates to join the debate on educational reform and curriculum planning. You've got educational reform question in question 2 and number 7 about curriculum planning. The question papers on gardening include almost no reference to educational children, but tend to focus on crop rotation and crop yields, particularly during the 1940s, during the war years. The hygiene papers do relate to children, and in this pre-NHS question paper, there's a strong emphasis on the teacher's ability to diagnose illnesses in children, which is covered in questions 2, 3, 5 and 7. and I'm running out of time, so I'm not going to read those out, but you've got them on your handouts. During the Second World War, several regional colleges formed associations pending a new Board of Education control, which temporarily increased the syndicate's scope. And after 450 students had taken exams in 1951, the syndicate handed over its examining responsibilities to the Cambridge Institute of Education. So I've only here been able to give you some aspects, highlight some aspects of our early engagement with adult learning. I've not made any systematic or detailed analysis, but I hope some of the illustrations have been interesting to you. Cambridge University clearly did reach beyond its traditional academic scope in these areas of extension, and although some of these examples were relatively short-lived, they were quite progressive, especially for women who were wanting to become teachers. The proficiency exams gave momentum to a non-promising start to become very successful, and although the rural pupil teacher exams were out of line with government policy, they just lasted around 8 years. The local exam syndicate still exists today as the Institute of Continuing Education, and Cambridge Assessment continues to develop qualifications for adult learners. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, let's do them.
Thank you very much, Gillian. I hope that's given you a slight insight into the wealth of information that we have in our archives. If you want to find anything more about our archive service, if you go onto our website at cambridgeassessment.org.uk, you can find more about the archives. This is one of the 4 sessions that we're running this week as part of the Festival Ideas. We've got one on Thursday as well, which again is sold out, but can be watched live online from 4 o'clock. So if you go to our website, you'll find out more information. I'd just like to say thank you very much for everybody. Anybody who's staying for the next session, please remain seated. Otherwise, we will take the rest of you back through to reception. And thank you very much for your time.
Do you want to, I did say, does anyone want to have a question?
Yeah. Oh, so sorry.
Because we've got 5. We've got a couple of minutes. Have we?
We've got 2 minutes. If anybody's got a question.
Sorry,
I
just
Was the Italian student who wanted the certificate awarded the certificate? Did they grant the request?
Well, no. We've got a scrapbook of sort of interesting bribery type letters, and people who've written in and basically said, I'm no good at learning, but I've got the money and I can always buy one of you. And of course, they were all carefully filed away and kept, but not responded to. So, any.
Do you see the archives at any stage where the marking schemes are supplied as well? Because that would be interesting.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Unfortunately, marking schemes are very much a late 20th, early 21st century invention, and in fact, they weren't published until 2000 for some exams. Some of them we've got for the late 1990s, but they just weren't available for early exams. There was a tendency, I think, for the exams in the early 20th century, that the examiner was the god, really, the king, and why would they be accountable? Why would they need to publish the marking schemes? Because they made. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.